You're watching the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network. Now it's time for the Brent Austen Show.
Well, there's the quarterback battle that we're going to talk a little bit about today because that will be on full display coming up tomorrow night when the Jaguars play the Bucs. Each player is going to get a half. I thought it was pretty interesting. Doug Peterson said their reps in camp have been separated by like 3 or 4 plays only. So that's how much this is a battle between Mac Jones from Jacksonville, of course, and C.J. Beathard, the incumbent, who has been, of course, in that quarterback room with Trevor Lawrence for a few years now. Brent Martineau along with Austin Lane. And, hey, happy Friday. Place is buzzing here down at Bozard. Ford, Lincoln, and St. Augustine. Outlet malls, if you're down this area, come on by, say hello. I think we've already got some of our friends popping by on a Friday, getting the weekend started with a good-looking vehicle right behind us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's one of those Bozard-built Fords. I mean, if you come down here right now, they have all the Fords out in the front, these giant Baja trucks, off-road editions. And listen, like, I'm not in the market right now, but I might be in the market because there's a black one with my name on it that's souped up. I'm not sure if my son could actually like hop up and get in there. That's fine, though. I can press him up there, and he'll get in just fine. There are some badass trucks around here right now.
Yeah, love at first sight.
Yes.
For Austin Lane. So there we go. We will be here until 1 o'clock, of course, on the day and get ready for a Jags game on CBS 47 tomorrow night. That will be pretty, well, I don't know about fun and entertaining as last week's game because I'm not sure you're going to get one of those. I'm not sure if it's as fun and entertaining as the joint practices because those were pretty darn good.
Yeah.
The entertainment factor so far this preseason, at least on those kind of stages, has been pretty good relative to the camp stuff where I've kind of called it a bit boring at times. So a pretty wild juxtaposition there between the two. And listen, I don't know if there's the headline of tomorrow night, Austin, is not like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to see Trevor and all these guys. What are they going to do next? It's really about the back end of the roster. It's about the middle part of the roster. It's about what we just showed you, Mac Jones and C.J. Beathard. And there's plenty of intrigue there. Now, that might not suit the casual fan as much, but the diehard fan is certainly looking, how deep is this roster? Can we see those guys play well again? Because it looked like the drop-off was pretty minimal. Last Saturday night.
No, for sure, and obviously it's going to be a lot of 2s versus 2s and 3s versus 3s. And you talk about a Tampa Bay team who I think that they're a little deep in their own right. I mean, this isn't a bottom barrel team of the league. I mean, Tampa went to the playoffs last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, they're still a quality team as well with quality players. So, yeah, I understand maybe on paper, you're not going to have all the starters. You're not going to have Trevor. We'll see with Brian Thomas Jr., but, like, it'll probably be a lot of 2s and 3s. But, yeah, for those depth purposes, and I guarantee you're going to see some guys from Tampa and Jacksonville that will play some meaningful reps in the regular season when it starts.
Jason Hamby, we got the human enigma, maybe even back there today in studio. Double team back in the network studio as well. So we'll check in with those guys in just a little bit. Outside of, is this a real battle? Is the Mac Beathard thing, does it catch your attention? Usually we don't talk about it. I've been around here a long time. We don't talk about the backup stuff. But I think Mac adds a lot of intrigue there. And C.J. Beathard came in, and with all due respect, he's not a headline guy, but he's a fine guy. That's what the backup is. Like, you kind of have your clipboard. You settle down in the meeting room. We don't really talk about you much. You're almost like an offensive lineman. You do your job. Mac has a different feel. One, because he's from Jacksonville. Two, because he was just picked in the first round a few years ago. And his situation is unique to have 2 of the top 15 picks of the 2021 draft class. So I think that makes it interesting. And then we also know this dynamic of there's a comfortable nature between Beathard and Lawrence. Mm-hmm. So Mac almost has to really play well to almost upset that, to change that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, possibly, but like I don't think it's out of the realm of thought that they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks here on this roster. And not maybe in some kind of practice squad, capacity with C.J. Beathard, but to me, I see 2 different types of quarterbacks with Beathard and Mac Jones. I see C.J. Beathard, who's the guy that helps Trevor Lawrence. Kind of a true backup, if you will. Has the experience, we talk about this all the time, but has the experience, has played in a lot of systems, and just that guy you can bounce ideas off. I think Mac Jones is more of the guy where you're uncertain but can maybe help you win a game or a couple games. Like, I think with Beathard and a lot of backup quarterbacks in the league, you know what you're getting. You know, I mean, with all due respect to like a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of had a resurgence at the backup quarterback, became a starter. Joe Flacco as well. But usually with the backup quarterback, you know exactly what you're getting. And with CJ Beathard, I think we all know what he's capable of. Can he go out there and win you 4 or 5 games if Trevor goes down, knock on wood? Probably not. Can he come in and manage a game and keep you up? Possibly. With Mac Jones, it's different. I think with Mac Jones, we haven't seen the best version of Mac Jones yet. Now, maybe that was stifled a little bit with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. But I think with this, we want to see Mac Jones obviously outplay CJ Beathard so we can have the conversation of, all right, what does Trevor Lawrence need? Does he want the guy that, if he goes down, once again, knock on wood, can come in and win games? Or does he want the guy he can bounce ideas off of and maybe be a little more comfortable with in a guy like CJ Beathard?
You know, we have video yesterday. I was back in the sports office after the show, and there's video. I think it was from yesterday. Maybe it was from Wednesday, but I think it was yesterday. And Stuart was showing me, and they're doing, you know, like they take the those big like jab sticks and they try to knock the ball out of the quarterbacks, like as they're doing their footwork drills and stuff. And so there's this shot of like Mac, and he's he actually starts to drill early before Mike McCoy can notice it. Here it is. Yeah. Oh, this is good by you, Hamby. But he started the drill. Look at the smile on Mac's face, though. And maybe you might have to go back to it a little bit to see the early part.
It's before the drill even starts.
This kid. Yeah, he started to go. He starts smiling because he's like, "Hey, I'm sneaky here.
I got
You're not
you.
gonna poke me. I'm getting away from you."
Yeah.
And he has definitely added that. But what I can't get past the idea of New England and Alabama don't spark those kind of smiles. It doesn't feel like it. I'm not saying they don't. It just doesn't feel like that those environments do. It's just all business, all football, all winning, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not telling you it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I just think everybody's been a little bit like almost surprised at Jags headquarters, on the practice field, outside, by this like positive, almost fun-loving, kid-like nature of Mac Jones. And part of this is that we didn't really know about Mac Jones much here in Jacksonville. He burst on the scene like he was at bowls and nobody was talking about him. And all of a sudden, Mac Jones was like, Alabama offered, Kentucky offered. It's like, I'm telling you, we were like, what is he talking?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Well, then he goes to Alabama. Like, well, he's never going to play at Alabama. I don't know why the heck he went to Alabama. And then look what happened at Alabama, and then he's a 15th overall pick. So this was a slow emergence. This was kind of a hidden emergence here in Jacksonville. If you follow local high school football and sports, this wasn't a Tebow-like thing where he was ballyhooed. This wasn't even Carson Beck, who you saw kind of coming up in the last couple of years at Mandarin, and now you're like, hey, what's he doing? What's he doing? So we have plenty of those guys. But Mac wasn't really on that list, so I think we're getting kind of a chance to know him a little bit better. And I think there's this other element, Austin. I think, don't we want to see, like, we almost want to see Mac do well. Yeah, sure, he's a local guy. He loves to see people do well. But because we want to see Bill Belichick in New England proved wrong, or they were the bad part of it. They were the reason he was not successful.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any. I get you want to see Bill Belichick get proven wrong because Mac Jones, the Jacksonville guy. But like, I don't have any ill will towards like the Patriots. Like, I don't want to see it's like, haha, we told you, like Mac Jones the real deal. I mean, I think the Patriots organization, after like try replacing Tom Brady, and to tell me how that's going to go. You try with Mac Jones a little bit, it didn't work out. Like, I'm not sure really any franchise can do what they did with the New England with Tom Brady for all those years, when all those championships, and try to keep expectations when that said quarterback leaves. It's almost next to impossible. Yeah. Green Bay did it with Favre, but like that's not even close to how many championships they won in Green Bay with Favre. He only had 1 Super Bowl, went to 2 Super Bowls. So, yeah, I think just the biggest story with Mac Jones is like we don't know what he is yet, because he kind of burst on the scene late in his career, and like he's never really been a front runner. Like Trevor Lawrence, you could probably see it in high school. Like this guy was going to be special. This guy was going to be groomed to be the number 1 pick overall. He was going to be groomed to be a franchise quarterback. Mac Jones never really had that. He had a great year in Alabama, shot up draft boards. New England took a chance. It didn't work. So what I want to see most of all is Mac Jones reach his full potential. And to echo what Hamby said when, they first signed him, and maybe a possibility, maybe trading him for, higher price on the dollar than what you got him for. Because it was a 6th-round pick, which, the Jaguars love throwing away, and that's fine. But, say he plays well in this preseason game. Say he plays well in the next preseason game. then maybe a team needs a quarterback. Injuries happen all the time. Now all of a sudden maybe we're talking about a 3rd-round pick, even a 4th-round pick for Mac Jones. Get some return on your investment. I think there's a lot to like there as well. And then once again, if heaven forbid Trevor Lawrence does go down, can Mac Jones go out there and win you games?
It's interesting. Hamby, I want to bring you in here for that part of the conversation because Austin brings up your conversation, and I don't look at it that way. Like, I haven't looked at this signing as, hey, let's see if we can increase Mac's value and trade him away, and somebody might be interested. I'm not telling you you're wrong. I think it's a fascinating one. Wouldn't Minnesota be somewhat interested if they got another injury now? I mean, they're trying Sam Darnold out in a familiar way, so they're not going to get 2 of those guys. But what if Sam Darnold were to go down all of a sudden? I'm not wishing that on them, by the way.
Yeah.
Finally, Minnesota got some good news around Jordan Addison. But do you think that's in play here, Hamby? I know you suggested it, but do you think now that he's settled in here and what you've seen so far, that it's in play that he is somewhere else before the end of the season and maybe even before the start of the season?
Yeah, I think, well, actually, it's actually crazy that you mentioned Sam Darnold because that was going to be my question that I pitched whenever we got to this topic was how much pressure, self-pressure is on Mac Jones knowing that a good performance on tape tomorrow could lead to him being Minnesota's quarterback in Week 10 if Sam Darnold gets hurt or whatever the week is. Obviously, I hope that's not the case, but there's a couple of teams where, you would like to think that Mac doesn't even need it, that he could use his 3 years against the Patriots, but I think teams are going to want to see that he rebounded. And if it takes 3 halves of football each preseason week to do that, this is what he has to take advantage of. And, it could be a team even I'm trying to think of other teams like Sam Darnold was the one that popped off the most. But
well, who's backing up in New Orleans, right? Like, let's just say Derek Carr were to get hurt, or it wasn't to work out with anybody in Pittsburgh for the Raiders.
I mean, New Orleans right now, they got Jake Haener as their backup quarterback, or they have Spencer Rattler as well.
Oh, they actually like Rattler too. They've liked what Rattler has done. So, but listen, you can find your spot.
I mean, you can see Vegas.
Vegas is interesting. They obviously have Minshew. Yeah, you could make the case right now if Mac Jones and listen, I'm a Minshew fan, but let's just play the game. Could you make the case right now that Mac Jones is the best quarterback on the Raiders roster if you were to go there?
Over Minshew?
Over Minshew and Aiden O'Connell?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, until I see more from Mac Jones, I'm taking Minshew over Mac Jones.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's closer than everywhere else. Like Derek Carr, you wouldn't even put him Derek Way, right? You're going there, right? I mean, Kyler Murray, they might need a backup in Arizona if he were to go down, but it's Kyler Murray. You know what I'm saying? Sam Darnold might be a close one. That's why Minnesota makes some sense, right? We don't know
I agree with that.
about Sam Darnold. I mean, could the Giants, who did the Giants take other than Daniel Jones? Who else on their roster other than Daniel Jones? I feel like they got somebody else.
They got Drew Lock.
And who else?
Okay. Drew Lock.
DeVito.
Okay, well, but
from Seattle.
But that's not a bad, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? So, I don't know if I want to go back into the cooker there in New York.
Yeah.
But I want to start.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I want to start. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's some examples here. Mm-hmm. That's how good of a potential. And listen, I'm not trying to tell you that Mac Jones is going to make 5 Pro Bowls in his career. I think we just don't know. We just don't know on Mac. Much like Sam Darnold when he went to Carolina, I don't think we knew everything about it because the Jets put him in such a tough spot. Mm-hmm. Like Zach Wilson, he kind of made his own bed in some respects, and he wasn't always in a tough spot. He kind of made his own tough spot. That's a different situation when you fail. Mm-hmm. So I think Darnold has always been interesting. Now we're on his 3rd time with Darnold. I saw something today. He's only 27 years old, which is crazy.
Yeah, it seems like he's been around for at least 15 years.
He's only 27 years old.
Yeah.
So something like that could work. And then, hey, the guy that's actually in town this week, and he's not going to play tomorrow, I don't think, is Baker Mayfield. He's your example. Even Max said it this week. It's that's a great example of a guy's journey that, hey, it doesn't always go well start to finish, right?
Yeah,
but it can get resurrected. And I think right now Baker Mayfield is the new hope for a lot of those guys.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you see what Baker's been able to do, and sometimes we talk about this. It's the situation, it's the coaching, it's the environment, and yeah, could Zach Wilson been drafted someplace else and play well? I mean, I'm not sure, but I think there are some quarterbacks out there, maybe like a Mac Jones, where found himself in New England, just wasn't the right fit. It snows, he can't throw the ball at all, supposedly according to Bill Belichick. They still win the game, but in the most boring fashion of all time. It really depends sometimes on that environment and who you have as your pieces around you.
And Mac even referenced that. I didn't pull that part. I mean, we'll hear from him at some point, but I didn't pull that one. But he even mentioned, because Stewart asked him about, how cool is it that, 2 of the 6 quarterbacks in tomorrow night's game are from Jacksonville, him and Johnny Wolford. He was talking about how he trains with Johnny. He even trains with Kyle Trask. He's even thrown with Baker, and how he thinks that Baker is an inspiration for him and other quarterbacks because he was drafted high. It didn't work out. It wasn't a total failure, but it took a reset, and he was like, yeah, Baker seems like he's found a great home, and that's something that I can do. He was like, I'm fully focused on, Jacksonville, obviously, but that Mac is looking for that next opportunity because he's sitting behind Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, listen, we're out of the gates talking about the backup quarterback in Jacksonville. This is probably the only week we're going to talk about the backup quarterback a lot in Jacksonville.
I hope so.
Yeah, we do hope so.
I truly hope so.
But it is a fascinating storyline. It's almost a story, if you go way back, and I wasn't in town at that point, but when David Garrard actually was drafted, I don't think they were talking about it in this kind of respect, because we know Trevor Lawrence is the guy. Remember, Garrard ended up taking over for left. Like, that was a different scenario. But if you want to go back in Jags history and talk about, like, interesting backup quarterback situations, the only other time is when you've had a young player like Gabbert, who was sitting early, or Bortles, who was sitting early. And they weren't technically the backup quarterback. They were more the, up-and-coming quarterback that was getting a little learning experience from the sideline. So this is a very unique situation. And to the point where, like, if Hamby's correct in any way, if there is some trade potential value for the Jags, well, then you have to keep 3 guys. Because we know this about Doug. He values that backup spot as much, if not more, than anybody in the NFL. So C.J. Beathard has to somehow, or it's important that he's a part of this.
Yeah, well, and I think we've talked about this before, too. If you talk about the practice squad, I'm not sure what the market's like right now for a C.J. Beathard, but I do know if you put Mac Jones on the practice squad, there's no way he's going to stay there, right? So, I mean, maybe you're looking at a situation where you keep Mac Jones, you keep C.J. Beathard, but you move C.J. Beathard to the practice squad and pray that no one's going to take him off there and claim him off waivers.
Listen, Zach Fortner just said this in the chat, and I think it's an interesting call. He says, does Mac have the arm strength? Felt like he was a first-round pick because of Bama more so than his physical traits. If he played at Washington State, probably a 5th rounder. And I don't know if that's the disparity. I'm also not denying that could be the case, but when you win a national championship in the way you do, your stock goes up, right? Like it's McCarthy. Like McCarthy, if he was playing at Washington State, he would have been a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick somewhere too, most likely, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not denying that these guys do get shoved up the board a little bit for playing at Alabama. My biggest issue with Mac, and this isn't his fault, I just think the game has changed so much that guy that looks like he can't move that great, it's kind of, that day is gone. Like that day is just about gone. Like, he might be one of the few to still be able to do it if he can do it at a starter level. But if you go around the league, find me guys that can't move that are playing the position, I don't think you're going to come up with many.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to extend the play now. Defenses are way too strong, way too fast. Like, you have to be able to move around. And, yeah, to be fair, Mac Jones isn't one of those guys. I mean, Drew Brees made a name of it, being, just a pocket quarterback, Tom Brady as well, but the game is definitely changing. And keep in mind, I think what the offenses want to do now, be more dynamic, have more complicated routes and formations and everything, you got to have a quarterback who can buy you time, and I just don't think Mac Jones is that dude. So it's almost like, I don't want to say like you're stuck like in a time capsule. It's like you're kind of seeing the past, but Mac Jones really does represent the past of what a quarterback should be.
Yeah, I think so. Like listen, Derek Carr's not going to go be fleet on his feet on his feet, whatever.
Okay,
he's not going to be fast, but he also has he has enough, right? There's enough. Like, even like you look at Minshew, he can run around a little bit. Like, these guys, that's just not Mac. Like you said it great. The game has changed. The game has evolved at the same time. It's not his fault. It's just that it's like, if he was maybe 5 or 8 years earlier, I think you probably would get a guy that could find more homes and maybe even be very successful in the league, but it's just transitioned out of that so much.
And it's not even being a dual threat quarterback or having the ability to run for, 15, 20 yards a pop. It's just the ability to threaten to do that.
Yeah.
And if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm prepping for Mac Jones, I'm not worried about, okay, we have to blitz from this side or we have to have games tailored to this side because he likes to step up here and he can run. Like, no, I mean, he's kind of a statue back there. Like, yeah, he's still an athlete. He's still a young kid, so he could run, like his life depended on it. But if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm not worried about Mac Jones trying to beat me with his legs, or at least appear to show to beat me with his legs.
I'll add one more thing to that, Austin. I think it's become a safety thing because the defensive fronts are so good, and they're better than the offensive line right now. Like, we're seeing a league that's just better than the offensive line. There's more defensive guys that are big, can move, and want to get after the quarterback than that are big, that can move, that want to protect the quarterback. That's just the way it is right now in the league. And that's why I believe, partly, we've had 68, 70, 72 quarterbacks starting games over the last couple of years in the NFL. And so you're a sitting duck. And that's a hard thing to do. Now, sometimes you just go be a sitting duck like Brady was or Manning was. Like, maybe you just take your medicine. But your risk for injury actually, I think, goes up a little bit when you can't move. Now, sometimes your moving brings other risk of injury in. So that's like a double-edged sword deal. But it's certainly, again, this isn't a his fault thing. I think he's gotten the most out of his talent right now. I think it's just the way the game has evolved a little bit. But that being said, Z Fortner, one more thing he said, I just don't see him being a hot commodity next year. That's not really what we're talking about as much as he might be a desperate commodity for a team. Sure. Right. And that's where the Minnesotas and others come into play, depending on what their quarterback situation look like. But right now, the Jags have a very good quarterback situation. Like, that's the beauty of it. Hamby, take us to one of the sound bites since we spent so much time talking Mac, and then we'll take a break. But I don't know which ones you have. Set it up for us, if you will.
I got you. So we're going to hear from Mac yesterday on just the challenge of competing every day against a guy that it's either kind of could be his job or yours, and how he goes about that.
Yeah, I've competed my whole life, and I find great joy in competition. I try to just be myself. I'm not going to change because of one thing or another. And like I said, I think we have a great room here. Trevor and CJ, they've been awesome, and I feel like we're brothers in there, and that's what you want. And you want to bounce ideas off each other and compete every day. And sometimes we have these net challenges and stuff, and it's like three brothers out there just throwing the ball around. So we compete in that regard. We compete in every other regard. But at the end of the day, we're on the same team. And we're all working for a common goal, and that's every good team that I've been on, that's the case, But the bad ones, not so much.
That's a very interesting end of his soundbite right there. The bad one's not so much, right? You can see it, which means you can feel it. No, I mean, like, we can't feel that stuff. You've been in locker rooms. Yeah. We can't feel that when it's a little misplaced. But listen, here's the deal. I root for Mac Jones. I think this will resurrect his career in some respect. I don't know exactly what kind of respect. I think it rejuvenates him as an individual. I think he was beaten down a little bit in New England by all of it. And you can tell, man, he's just refreshed and rejuvenated. So that's step one. And step two is, okay, can he find a home? Can he get another starting opportunity? And at the very least, he's going to be a backup in the league for a long time. And not only that, I think he's a future, coach. Sure. Doesn't he come across that way?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely cerebral, man. When we talked about, I remember their rookie years with Trevor, Zach, and Mac. That sounds like a boy band. But, we talked about how Mac Jones had it seemed like he had the advantage because of his IQ. Yeah. Because, the first couple preseason games with the Patriots, this dude's already calling out audibles. He's calling out coverages and everything. So he definitely has a high football IQ. I think going forward, Mac, and he definitely be a coach one day. Here in Jacksonville, I wonder if he's going to be able to accept a backup role. I think when he got traded to Jacksonville, yeah, Trevor's the man, but he still thinks I can be a starting quarterback.
And he should.
Yeah, he should, but also I think the job of a backup quarterback is to know that you're a backup quarterback. I think what makes a backup quarterback a great backup quarterback is expectations of, I'm not trying to compete with the starting quarterback. I'm here for support. I'm here to help out. And I'm here to be, called upon if needed. But I'm not sure, in a backup quarterback, do you want actually that dog mentality where it's like, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to be the starter one day? I'm not sure. I'm on the defensive side of the ball, so I'm not sure about it. But I feel like out of a backup quarterback, the best backup quarterbacks know they're backup quarterbacks.
I think you're right, and I get what you're saying, but I think those guys don't usually realize that until they failed twice. You know what I mean? We've talked about Henny in the past. I mean, even Minshew now, right? So he's getting that opportunity. I think if I was Mac at 25 years old or whatever he is, 26 years old, like, no, not yet. I don't want to settle into that yet, that mentality. I want to give me one more crack.
Yeah.
And then I'll settle into that.
But, like, you think that's why they kind of traded Minshew away? Because they didn't want to?
I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I do. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, but then what's the difference between if you would have kept Minshew or brought Mack in? I mean, they're kind of in the same spots in their careers where they both think they're starting quarterbacks. Now, Minshew obviously is a starting quarterback, and we'll see how that transpires in Las Vegas. And I still think Mack thinks he's a starting quarterback.
Let's just take it in the context of this. I think I think Minshew at some point was probably like, hey, I think I can't. He told the organization, and I don't know this, I'm just saying, I think he told the organization, I can still start in this league. I don't want to settle into the backup. Find me a new home.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, Mac, they might ask him that question at the end of the year. Hey, Mac, would love to have you back. Like, no, I really want to go find a new home. And so then those guys answer the question for you as an organization. Like, okay, they're not there yet.
Yeah.
Where somewhere along the way, Chad Henne was like, okay, yeah, I want to come back to Kansas City. It's cool sitting behind Patrick Mahomes and helping him out.
I know. I mean, we can feel a certain type of way about it now, but who would have been the better backup quarterback for Trevor Lawrence now that what we know? Mac Jones or Gardner Minshew?
Mac Jones, hands down.
Hands down.
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
That's an easy answer for me.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like it is for you.
No, not at all, because I can't name another roster in the NFL where you have, because we still consider Trevor young, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How many rosters in the NFL have two young quarterbacks the same age that came out of the same draft class that are the starter and the backup quarterback?
Not very. It's unique.
I know we had that in Washington, but
it's pretty unique. You're right.
Yeah, I think it's very unique. I think that's for a reason, because you want a guy with a little more experience. And I think, Minshew, it's only by a couple of years. I think Minshew would have had a little more experience, and obviously in college had played a little more as well. And in terms of IQ, it could be very comparable, but I know Minshew is definitely like a genius when it comes to offense and everything.
Good. And you're right about Mac. Those two are alike in terms of their picking up of plays. And I love Mac's answer earlier. It's like, I love new offenses. You learn a little bit more. Everybody says it's a bad thing when you got to learn a new offense, but it's kind of a good thing because you get a little more pick brains of other coaches. I would just say this, Austin, just to finish your thought and then pick it up here.
Yeah.
But I'm not telling you that Mac said, hey, I want to be a backup long term, but I do think he was like, hey, being a backup right now at this point in my career in year 4 in this situation back home is good for me. I accept that. Like, that's cool. But I don't know if I accept it long term. I don't think Minshew has ever accepted, hey, you're going to be the backup. So, which, by the way, is an admirable thing, too.
So you think it would have clashed in the...
I think so. Well, eventually, I just think two of the things you're saying, I don't think he would have ever accepted it. And rightfully so, the way his career's worked out, he shouldn't have accepted it. He just got a $25 million deal.
Sure. But, he kind of accepted it in Philly, and then he got his opportunity.
He did, but don't you think he went to Philly because Hurts was in question there when he went there? It was like, hey, this might be an opportunity.
You knew Hurts was going to be the guy, though.
I kind of go back to that time, and I don't think everybody knew he was the guy yet. That was before the MVP-like season.
Okay.
So I don't know. I just think it was. It's totally different than the Jags drafting Trevor, where you knew you weren't.
Well, no. Right? Minshew obviously had a better shot. He knew he had a better shot of starting in Philly with Jalen Hurts than he did with Trevor because Trevor's number 1 overall pick. I understand that, but
it is an interesting head game, isn't it? The mentality of that spot. I think you're very right on that, which also creates what I still think is I think they should do a 30 for 30 in the QB room. Because all the stuff that these quarterbacks say, like, hey, man, buddy, brothers, all that stuff, and I believe it. I don't think they're making stuff up. But they're all competing for this one opportunity. It's like, at least if you're a pass rusher, you're competing for, like, 4 opportitionities.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do not get that spot. It's a very unique place in a hyper-competitive sport. And if I had time, I'd love to do a documentary on the quarterback room.
Yeah.
Because it's very unique, and I don't know if there's anything like it in sports.
No, they're very well not and I get everyone's trying to compete for that one spot, but I think what makes a great quarterback room is that everybody knows their assigned roles.
Their role. That's a good call. Good call. Who do you have your eyes on? Like last week, I thought like a guy like DJ Coleman came out of that game, and I keep seeing 54 making plays. We just had a conversation with Chad Muma. Muma, I don't think everybody was talking about Saturday night, but by like Sunday and Monday, people were like, hey, man, Muma was making a lot of plays. I think you said Mims, it's in that part of the roster, but are we seeing Elijah Cook separate a little bit
Yeah.
I think we might be starting to see that separation where it might be Elijah Cooks and everybody after that really has an uphill battle to even make this team and to get on there. Jags might just keep 6 players at the receiver position. So all that being, I think I had said Tank Bigsby last week, and Bigsby building confidence. Check the box, man. He built it. Hamby, to be honest with you, I can't remember exactly the guy you were trying to watch last week, but I also don't even know if you were on the show last week with us on Friday that we were doing this. So let's start with you. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long week. Let's start with you and say
Hamby had Tank Bigsby.
Oh, he had Bigsby?
I'm pretty sure Hamby had Tank Bigsby. Yes.
I thought I had Bigsby, but it's okay.
Well, no, because there was a time where you left and then whatever. I'm sorry.
You're right. I did because I had the production meeting last. Yeah, so you guys were probably doing a similar thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with you, Hamby. What do you got? You can give a couple players. Just don't name the whole roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe an offense and defensive guy to keep an eye on tomorrow. And we don't think most of the starters are going to play. I don't know that.
Okay.
I know Trevor's not playing. And we know guys like Linder, Sheriff, and like a Morse likely aren't going to play.
Yeah, but my big question before we get this whole thing started, what about the linebackers?
See, I think Foyer won't play. He hardly played last week.
No, yeah.
But I think that Devin Lloyd could be playing.
Okay.
And the movements of the world. I wonder if an Anton Harrison's going to play since he didn't last week. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't have those answers for you yet, but I think we have to go in with the idea that most of the main starters are not going to play. So this conversation starts with maybe a couple of starters, but also the middle of the roster.
Gotcha.
So go ahead, Hamby. What you got?
I think on the defensive side, I'm going to be keying in on the 2 rookies on the line, LSU guys, Mason Smith and Jordan Jefferson, just because I think that right now there are guys on the defensive line that are better than them that will be cut because of obviously their draft stock. You can't invest in them and cut them, and that's part of the game. You make the team based off of your potential. But and Mason Smith's still not a guy that we've seen a lot about. We've well chronicled how little he played in college and how little tape there is on him. So just looking forward to seeing both of those guys kind of equally, and how much time they get. Because, obviously, if Devon Hamilton doesn't play, Roy barely plays, you're going to get a lot of DJ Coleman, Ledbetter, and those 2 guys or something like that. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to seeing those 2 guys. And then real quickly on the offensive end, it's not a surprise by any means, but I'll take Parker Washington because, Kirk's going to be out. I feel like we could say relatively strongly.
Yeah, he's out.
There's no way he plays. And then maybe Gabe doesn't play too. So I feel like you're going to get a full half of Parker Washington, perhaps being the feature guy, depending on if Evan Ingram plays, but he might be the guy. And what can he do with it? So.
For me, one on offense, one on defense. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So on defense, go ahead and let's go ahead and re-up again. Let's go ahead and go with Terrell Edmonds.
Oh.
Because he put one great game together. Definitely, with injuries, I think is that kind of on the back side of the roster a little bit. But if you can put 2 great games, and when I say great, I mean, like I said, I think he was my player of the game. And then for whatever reason, Chris Collinsworth and PFF decided to agree with me, which that is what it is. But dude, I'm so disappointed in myself with that because you know how I feel about PFF, right? And now we're on the same page.
It's
yeah.
Okay.
But
it was just a mistake.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Okay. But I'm gonna watch Terrell Edmonds some more. Can he build off that first game? And can it almost be a point where it's like I'm too good to cut? Like, I understand maybe I'm on the backside. You bring in a guy like Gibson, but guess what? I'm out here making plays. You can't cut me. I'm too good to cut. So I'll be watching that. And then offense, until I see something from him, it's going to be Brenton Stranger Things because we haven't seen anything from this guy really at camp, I feel like. We haven't seen a lot in the first preseason game. I think he had one play? Or like they tried to go to him once or something.
Yeah, that was the play that I stuck up for him a little bit because he was open. CJ just missed him. It would have been that drag route would have been a nice probably 18, 20-yard gain.
Yeah.
And he actually played well in practice this week. I think he started to pop a little bit. So It's a good thought on Brenton Strange. Is he going to emerge? Because I do think there's a nice little conversation. We've had it. Mm-hmm. I think I was having it this week with some other folks. I'm like, okay, is this a Brenton Strange issue where he's not getting on, or is this a Doug thing where he's not utilizing him enough? I don't know where that is.
We don't know where it is, and I think ideally you want to use 2 tight ends here in some of these formations. So who's the second tight end going to be? Can Brenton Strange finally step up a little bit and show that, where he was drafted can pan out? It should be a big game for him against Tampa.
Yeah, I think that, the nice part about this conversation is, as we're picking this almost spontaneously,
Yes.
is there's a lot of ways you can go. And so I've 3 times changed my defensive player. And I'm going to come back to this one, because now I believe he's one of the most fascinating players of the month. And that's Christian Braswell. I thought they totally stuck him at that nickel spot just for fun. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if they should do that. That's not very nice. But,
yeah. Let's see what happens.
This is a depth chart that looks a little goofy on paper.
Yeah.
Right? They're being coy in some respects. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Braswell was hurt most of last year, didn't do much. Well, guess what? People have their attention on 21. They're looking at him making plays, not just on the field. And that play wowed people. You even had the defensive coordinator get up on the podium and talk about a play that actually didn't count.
Yeah,
and he was like, that was a heck of a play now.
Yeah,
and he was, you could, I don't know what level of excitement Nielsen is yet. We haven't been around him enough. But you could tell he was excited, Austin, because he was excited about the eye. He even said, he's like, look at the whole play.
Yeah.
He's like, he recovered. He rips the ball, shows strength there to do that, heads up to do that. And then what he liked the most is they turned defense into offense. The entire team turned it into offense where they scored.
Yeah.
Again, a play that didn't count.
No, but it was definitely one of those proud parent moments.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. It's interesting.
So can he stack and actually be a factor here? Because in our minds, it's like, okay, where's Darnell Savage playing? Where's Antonio Johnson playing? Jarian Jones is, I think, interesting because is he the guy that's going to be left behind this rookie year because all these other guys are elevating, and now your third-round pick isn't going to play, so we're going to be critical of that because he's not even getting on the field. But is it really because of the success story of a guy like Christian Braswell, who was like a 6th-round pick last year? Like, is that a bad thing or not? I don't know, but we're talking development. That's a sign of development. And then the other guy that actually caught my attention, and I don't know if it was just because there was fun back and forth in the broadcast with Maurice Jones-Drew, is Jalen Jackson, the running back, the last guy in. And so here's where I'm getting to, and I don't know this. I'm just curious about this. We know it's going to be Etienne and Bigsby.
Yes.
D'Ernest Johnson's a very good special teams player, and obviously a guy who's been around the league. I think he's done some nice things with Jacksonville. He's the third guy for me right now, but what I don't know is will personnel be shifted because of the new kickoff rule to render a guy like Johnson a little less valuable on special teams?
Yeah.
I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
I just think he's a candidate to be a victim of that answer in another way. It used to be an attribute, like reason he's on the team, reason they liked him was because of special teams. Could it be what he does so well on special teams doesn't necessarily fit under this new kickoff umbrella?
That's true.
So I don't know if he fits there. And if that is the case, a guy like Keelan Robinson, who's brought into special teams, hasn't even played this game. Like, he is not going to be on the – I think they're going to try to stash him on the practice squad. Like how – or there's an injury thing or whatever, but he's done like nothing. So that brings in Jalen Jackson, who I thought, did a pretty good job. Now, you're doing that in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
Against the back end of the roster. Yeah. But is there a sneaky way? Now, this is also a guy people have talked about all camp. Flashing plays, flashing.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that can maybe find a spot on the roster with a guy like Keelan Robinson hurt and maybe D'Ernest Johnson, who's a little bit more expensive, and I know it's moderately more expensive, maybe getting his role changed a bit because of the new kickoff rule?
Well, let's be careful talking about Jalen Jackson because I do agree with you. I think there's a lot to like about him, and we know Titans fans are probably watching. They're probably going to be in the market for a new running back, so we don't want the Titans to kind of come in and scoop him off the practice squad if we stash him there. So we got to be careful how we talk about him. But I will say this. I feel like the running back position, I can't give a lot of examples, but you can always find the diamonds in the rough, I feel like, at the running back position. And he very well could be one of those guys. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to like here. Now, once again, if you're going against 3s and 4s, maybe anybody could look good, Brent. You could probably run for 20 yards on a play, depending on the offensive line and everything.
Maybe.
But maybe. You think so? No. Okay, I was going to say probably not, actually. I was trying to give you some credit, and you went along with it a little too much. I didn't like that. But, no, I think Jalen Jackson could definitely be an intriguing guy. Do you go for the more experience with like a D'Ernest Johnson, a guy who's done it for a while, maybe has some tread, that's wearing off those tires, or do you go with a new guy in Jackson?
I think D'Ernest Johnson's still the guy here. I'm not trying to start something.
Sure.
I'm just wondering with the injury and is he one that we might not think about under that new rule and everything else? I really don't have a good feel for it yet. Maybe something I ask a little bit about. but the Jalen Jackson story, is it something? And so he's a guy. This is what these games are for. Remember now, this game right now, I think on Saturday, is basically like that old last preseason game. It's the most equivalent to that because the Jags starters are going to play a little bit next week.
Yep.
So now they're not going to play as long as like the old third preseason game where that was the one they went into like the second half.
Correct.
But this is the one where guys like Jalen Jackson are probably going to get their best crack at it.
Let me ask you this. Do they make cuts after this game, or is it all just one giant cut now? It's all one cut now. Okay.
All one cut now. So you still got a couple of weeks to figure that out.
Okay,
obviously,
I like that.
injuries factor in.
Yeah.
Like their draft pick, Keelan Robinson, come back at all and make how do they feel about that? I'm not trying to oversell Jalen Jackson. I just think that's the guy we're going to get a look at. I would think another player here that I didn't want to say him because I had just mentioned him. I think Elijah Cooks, he's like a game away or another big performance away from really slamming the door on that spot.
Okay.
In my opinion.
And when you say slamming a door on that spot, you mean like probably like the last wide receiver? Yeah.
The top five are there.
Of course.
Like I like what
we know
Hamby
who
said.
they are.
I'm looking at Parker Washington as now as well.
Yeah.
A guy's making plays on the field in practice this week. He was making plays last week.
Yeah.
They've been raving about him.
Yeah.
I think all eyes are on Parker Washington, and he's
Agreed.
going to get a big chance. Like, he makes you feel okay right now and not freak out about an injury to Christian Kirk because of the way he's been playing.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's going to make you feel that way, Hamby, in 3 weeks against Miami. I mean, I want to see Kirk there. But that's the kind of camp that Parker Washington has had, and that's the kind of year he's had so far, that you're all of a sudden, you're like, I mean, all right, we got to get that guy in the field. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing, Hamby.
Well, it's not, but it sounds like, according to this 33rd team article that we may or may not get into, that Christian Kirk is just fine. So it really doesn't matter who the Jags tried out there, according to them, because our wide receiver weapons are just 23rd best in the National Football League.
Yeah, this was, and you
That's
guys,
a tease.
I don't know if you want to talk about that. I got to get
okay. You
going,
go.
You guys can talk about it. I was stunned by that. They were stunned. They were 22nd in the league. It's not. It's not the 22nd.
Yeah.
Would you say the Jags have the worst receiving core in the division? That's what they said.
And no, I understand, but I'm also seeing where they're coming from a national standpoint. You have Christian Kirk last year, who played in how many games? Okay, you have a rookie wide receiver who's coming in we know nothing about, and then on the other side of things, you have Gabe Davis, who has never gone over 1,000 yards receiving. I don't think.
No.
Okay. So that's what we have.
Yeah, but I think they're dismissing Kirk a little bit there.
Sure, but once again, they're just looking at last season, what it looked like, and he got hurt. And we're not. Keep in mind, tight ends weren't included in this thing either. So we're not including Evan Ingram in this list. So I'm not like.
I was a little surprised at 22.
Okay.
I saw another ranking on, I think ESPN ranked all position groups. And by the way, the Jags came in pretty nice on all but like the offensive line.
Okay.
They were top 15 in like every category.
Yeah.
And their receiving core, I think, was 13th. And I was like, okay, that seems to fit at least what my impression of it is. But one more thought on it. I talked to somebody outside of Jacksonville this summer who was like, this receiving core, you have to ask yourself, are you even better than it was last year when you had Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley? With Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. replacing them.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it in that context, that is a fair question. Can you buy the upside of all the rest? Absolutely. I'll buy the upside of BTJ for the next 5, 6, 7 years with the Calvin Ridley conversation we had yesterday.
Of course.
But for right now, if you take Ridley and Zay out and you put Gabe and Brian Thomas Jr. in, are you better? That was the story. And I think that's why you see a ranking like this at 22. It's probably a fair thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fair thought. And once again, I didn't see the entire list. I know Green Bay was actually surprisingly ranked pretty high, which
I thought of you on that.
Which I
they
was,
were 10.
I was really surprised on that one. But once again, when you talk about we know what Christian Kirk is, right? And yeah, he got hurt last year, but I don't think the national media appreciates what Christian Kirk does for Jacksonville.
I agree.
And it is hard to sit here and say, do we expect Brian Thomas Jr. to go out there and get 1,200 yards receiving, 7, 8 touchdowns? We'll see.
Friday nights are good for pizza. Donatos.com. Jack's Beach and Mandarin. Use code Brent20, and you get 20% off Donato's Pizza.